So anyway, yes, so 2018, it looks like we're set. That's the long and the short of it. And we are set to make sure LSTA funds are used in the manner in which they're meant to. So in Nevada, LSTA funds are used for statewide initiatives and services like Talking Books and Rural Bookmobiles and databases. And they are also used as sub-awards to eligible libraries. And that's why we're here, because you all have wonderful programs that you want to do that totally align with federal priorities. And we are going to be able to fund you, hopefully, so you'll be able to make library services really, really strong and vital in your communities. Okay, let's see. Oh, if you have not seen this, the State Council on Libraries and Literacy report to the governor, this actually is a summary by our council on libraries in Nevada for the past 2 years. And on the back is a map of how LSTA funds are distributed throughout the state. It's a county by county map. It shows the awards for 13, 14, 15, and 16, and what the projects were, so it's a pretty cool map. Click on that link when you have a chance. It's actually a really good advocacy tool. Next up is our plan. Okay, so how do we decide how we're going to spend our money? We actually have a plan. Where are plan. So in order to get these federal funds, we need to have a plan on how we're going to spend them and how we're going to use them. It's a 5-year plan. It goes, our last plan ends this year. It was 2013 to 17. Our new plan is 2018 to 22. Just like we require public libraries to have plans, we are also required to have a plan. If you remember, back in May, Tammy, Norm, and I got in a car and we took a 5-day road trip and we visited as many of you as we possibly could so we could talk to you, so we could understand your wants and needs, we could actually see your library, we get a feel for your community and for your staff and not just think of you as a name or a dot on the map. And we did this so we could really build our plan out to make sure it included things that you all wanted and needed. So we did that. We wrote our plan. We had our last plan evaluated. Here's a thing. Sorry, I'm getting a little discombobulated. Here's our plan. Oh, okay. And we did this because it's really important for us to know our community. And it's also required by IMLS. And this is what this slide is. This is a summary of the federal requirements for us to get this federal money and use it and distribute it out. So we have to have a plan that meets those purposes. We have to have our previous plan evaluated. We have to have a match. So we have to use our local state money to match federal funds at 34% of the total program amount. So if we get $1.7 million, that's 66%. We have to come up with 34%. And then we also have to have a maintenance of effort, and that is money that the state uses, state budget money that we use to meet those federal LSTA priorities. So that's what we have to do. And we have to make sure that when you have a project that you would like to do, you are also meeting all of these guidelines and priorities, that you have match. It's not 34, we only have 10% match. And that's that. So now we're going to go to our current plan. This is our current 5-year plan. All of these goals align with federal priorities. If they look familiar to you, it's because they are. They're the exact same goals as we had for the previous plan. So we kept the goals and we updated the activities. And we kept the goals because in our evaluation, said that our plan was really great. We met or surpassed all state level goals. We addressed LSTA priorities in a significant way. It was a good plan. If you would like to read it, here's the link to the whole thing. It's a lot of pages, there's a lot of data, but it's very useful and interesting. So we did well, I think. And if you had any contact with our evaluators, you might have made some recommendations, and this is what this slide is. So it wasn't all sunny and happiness. Actually, most of it was very good, but there were some findings that overall, as I said, our plan was found to be very sound, but there were findings that we had room for improvement. The suggestions for improvement were mainly programmatic. So we went through the evaluation and gathered up all the recommendations and sorted them, and they fit into these 3 categories. And the categories were timing, funding, and data. The timing was that our application time frame didn't often allow enough time to research and write a quality proposal, or the time frame there was too long between the project proposal, the project application, the project approval, and the project start. This past year it was 9 months, so the time frame was a little bit wonky. Funding, some of the smaller libraries were having problems meeting match. If you're small, your funding is not good, your FTEs aren't huge, 10% match is maybe not all that attainable. And so participation in the smaller libraries was an area of concern, and getting funding to them was recommended. Setting aside amounts for rural libraries was recommended. So just like the original LSTA Act in 1956 was meant to help small rural libraries, it was recommended that we also do a better job of allocating money to the smaller jurisdictions and helping them create and run successful grant projects. And then the final recommendation was to maybe make our data collection a little bit better, create some sort of uniformity to it. So, when there's no standard, it's sort of difficult to know what to collect and how to report it, which makes it difficult to know which data sets to use, makes it difficult to know what data will result in good decisions, makes it difficult to spot long-term trends. So doing something about our data collection was recommended, and we're actually doing that. That's something IMLS has started, and we'll go over that soon. As for the rest of it, timing and funding, we thought pretty long and hard about how to incorporate this into our program. And we want LSTA to be successful for everyone and available to everyone. And so we made a few programmatic changes, and that's the next slide. New. What is new for federal fiscal year 18 for LSTA? If you've been doing this for years, these changes will be slight. If you have not applied before, you won't even notice the difference. But the changes we made were to help smaller libraries participate and to help everyone actually participate. So here we go. So here are our updates. This is why we're here. New to this year, we're going to limit you to either a competitive or a mini grant. And the reason we did that is per recommendations, we needed to set aside some money for rural libraries. So we're not actually setting aside a pot of money just for rural libraries, but we're trying to distribute it more evenly and equitably. So 1 grant per jurisdiction. And after this year, we'll evaluate, see if that worked. And if it did, we'll continue. If it didn't, we'll think of something else. Another change that we're doing is increasing mini grants up to $10,000. Before it was $5,000. Anything above $5,000 was considered a competitive grant. $5,000 is a lot, but it's actually not. $10,000 is, we think, a reasonable amount to be considered a mini grant. It's enough to maybe get a nice small project going. It's not going to be huge and elaborate. It's maybe more manageable for a smaller library. With mini grant, there's just a little bit less paperwork. So it's also maybe making the avenues to participation a little more wide and open. So mini grants are up to $10,000. New also is a application first draft, and that addresses the timing finding. You know, we were told that the timing between proposal and actually submitting the application, it was really tight between proposal, recommendations, researching, writing. It was all during the holidays. It was all really boom, boom, let's get this going. And it was hard to get a really good quality proposal going. So we've stretched it out again. We've changed the whole calendar. In past years, the proposal was a month ago, and the applications were due in December. So we're shifting it forward a little bit. The proposal is due at the end of the month, and then we have applications I think they're due in January or February. So there's a little bit more time. We're also implementing a first draft feature. Before, you just submitted your application and that was it. Now, after the proposal, we'll make some recommendations, and then you can do a first draft. And we'll look at it. We, meaning me and Tammy and Norma and Jeff Kintop, who is our state librarian, state administrator, and other people on the library development team, and we'll work with you to make your proposal really strong and tight. We'll work with your budget. We'll make it so that anyone reading your application will totally know what you're doing, will totally understand your budget. It won't be out of line with anything. So yeah, we'll really try and strengthen that. Also new are micro grants. This was an idea that we thought might work for timing and funding. Rolling application deadlines was suggested. With the way we work here, we're on federal years and we're also on state years, so it would be difficult to extend grant projects for longer than 1 year. So we're still investigating that. But having a rolling application for smaller projects is definitely something we can do. So if you're not ready to go right now and you have a small project, we're going to have micro grant opportunities 3 times throughout the year. I think May 31st is the first deadline. You can get between $1,000 and $3,000. You can apply multiple times. You can get, I think right now we're seeing a maximum of $5,000, but again, we'll see what our funding looks like and maybe we can offer more. So that we think will help. And Norma and I are going to actually be available to everybody to help them with their micro grants. If you have a project that you think is just so cool and it's $1,000, you know, give us a call or shoot us an email and we can probably make something happen. And then also new is surveys. These aren't completely new, but they're new enough. IMLS is now requiring surveys for all instructional programs. These surveys are standard. They have standard answers and they're meant to align with project outcome, which is available to public libraries. So we are we are requiring the surveys for all projects that have instructional components. And you're meant to take those surveys and look at them and kind of use that data to make some informed decisions about where your projects go next. But we're also encouraging you to, if you're a public library, to look at project outcome, because even if you don't have an LSTA grant, there are 7 different categories with surveys in there. It's sort of, I've heard great things about it. It puts all of your projects and data in one place. You can chart trends. You can chart participation. It can really help you, we believe. Project outcome is figuring out a way to really get state library programs also incorporated into it. That hasn't happened just yet. So, you know, I can't create my own survey in there for all of you because we're not a public library, but we can sort of help facilitate that. So that's a work in progress, but data is something we are working on. And then the last new thing is it's called Measuring Success. It is an initiative of IMLS, and they are also aware that standardized data collection wasn't always, you know, all that accurate. So, you know, historically with IMLS, the focus has been on narrative and compliance with the program. And with this new Measuring Success initiative, it's sort of data-driven. I know that kind of sounds vague when I'm talking about it now. If you filled out the 2016 final evaluation, that right there was the final component in measuring success. It takes your projects and it separates all your activities into 4 categories, and within those 4 categories there are standard data sets. So we have narrative combined with data, and that will allow us to look at everyone's program, see what's going on, and maybe help direct future IMLS priorities. Because, you know, the first one went from 62 to 96 and went for 34 years just plugging away. The last one is, the last iteration of LST that we're in has been as it is since 1996. And how do we move forward? We look at what we've done and what we're doing and where we've been, and we kind of decide how that's going to go forward. So that's what the data is all about. And I hope in practice it works. I think it will. I think data-driven decisions is a cool word to say, but I think it's really going to help us with programs. Because, you know, I have these ideas. They sound wonderful on paper, but in practice, do they really work? Well, I have some data that's going to back me up. Okay, so that's what's new for 2018. So we kind of covered history of LSTA really, really briefly. How we got to where we are because we had our evaluation, and then we have our new LSTA plan. Any questions? Does any of that make sense? Yes? Excellent. Okay. Oh, here's a screen that actually talks about IMLS intents. So in addition to our Nevada goals, our 4 different goals, you now get to choose one of these IMLS intents that your projects are going to align with. They're called focal areas or intents. So lifelong learning is a big one, but which aspect of lifelong learning is your project going to do? Is it going to do formal education and general knowledge and skills? If you're kind of thinking that you don't know what you want to do as a proposal, you want to do something, you can look at the intents and maybe think how that might work in your community. Economic and employment development, that's always good. Maybe you can build a program using some of the data out there that talks about workforce and do a grant that helps improve users' ability to use and apply business resources, right? Okay, so that's the intents, focal areas. Okay, now we're into actual practical things. The proposal. You can get this, the proposal is where you turn your idea into a viable LSTA project, right? Proposals are the first step. You can access information 2 ways. You can either go through our website, which is nsla.mv.gov, development, and then LSTA 2018, or you can go directly to our LibGuide that I've built out, hopefully, to make things more organized and instinctive and intuitive. I'm going to share my screen. Tell me if this works, please. And we'll look at the LibGuide. Okay, I have a question from Jesse. Is this the heart of the summer reading program and collection development grant? Well, collection development is actually a state program. It's not a federal program, but they're both similar. We're both, working at the same purposes, which is to meet the federal library priorities. So collection development doesn't apply, but summer reading program is now going to come under micro grants. So you can definitely get a mini grant for your summer reading program if you want, but that's a larger, bigger project, and maybe it wouldn't really work for that, but we have the micro grants that are going to work for summer reading. Is that a good answer? Is that kind of what you're asking? Yes, okay, great. Okay, so can you see the LibGuide page? Someone type something or say something. Great, okay. So LibGuide for LSTA is separated into apply, and then it's not up there because I haven't finished building it, but it's going to be apply for a grant, manage your grant, and then general information and grant writing tips. So in apply for a grant, webinars, this is the webinar link for right now. I'm going to post the recording here as well. Application forms, proposal, competitive and mini form right there. We're going to have the actual application on this tab when it's finished. And then we're going to have the actual application for the micro grants right here on this tab. Okay. This right here is a list of available grants so far to date. If we come up with more ideas, we'll post them here, but right now it's competitive grants, funding levels, funding period, mini grants, funding level, funding period, micro grants, funding levels, funding periods. Down here we have calendars. So here is the calendar for the competitive and mini. Announcement of the program was last week. Proposal workshop, intro webinar, that's today. Proposals are due November 1st. Let's see how that goes. Mandatory applicant webinar for the actual application is going to be December 5th. So this is the LibGuide. Here, this is me. If you haven't met, this is me. You can email me. I don't have my phone number up there, but I will. And now let's look at the application. It's a PDF fillable. We did that so that it could be used across platforms and across devices. In theory, PDF fillables are usable by anybody. I did have someone have a problem, so if that happens, maybe download it instead of open it online. You can just take this and download it. That might work better. Proposal's really super short, really brief, to the point. This is your DUNS number. This is your Dun & Bradstreet number. It's required. Your library name, your library type. Section 2 is the project title. Tell us how much money you want. You want a mini grant or do you want a competitive grant? Your primary audience. Here are the IMLS intents. You're going to pick one. Here are the Nevada LSTA goals. You're going to pick one. And then we get to section 3. This is where you're going to tell us all the wonderful things that you would like to do. I'm going to talk about, first thing is, I organized it slightly differently because to me this made sense. This is the need. Why do you want to do your project? There's enough room for 125 words or 7 lines. We want you to be concise. Elevator speech is kind of a cliche, but this is your elevator speech. So tell us what the need is. What's a good need? We have a whole lot of children, pregnant women, and we need to like expand our LAPSIT program, right? So there's the need, and we want some data as backup. So if you can find data for your community's demographics and their age ranges, that would be excellent. That shows your need. And you're also going to tell us your solution. So that's the need. How will your library address the need and provide a solution? So, you know, this is the deal in my community, and my library is perfectly situated to sort of intervene in this challenge, and this is how we propose to make our community's lives like way more fun and interesting and better and prosperous. That's our solution. Activity outputs. Again, 125 words, 7 lines. Doesn't have to be super detailed, but tell us the activities. What are you going to do? Are you going to start an early literacy collection? Are you going to start a LAPSIT program? Are you going to hold these once a week? That sort of thing. It's this is sort of the numbers part. Next part is outcomes. Again, 125 words, 7 lines. Outcomes are, we always seem to have some switch up between outputs and outcomes. Outputs are things. Outcomes are changes in behavior, attitude, skill. They're less measurable than, you know, I bought 10 books. I bought 10 books and people will now be introduced to this subject and will maybe understand the difference between this thing and this thing, right? So we want to know what changes you think your project is going to enact in your community. And we also want to know what success will look like, or, you know, seriously, how will you measure success? Not by the number of books that are checked out, well, maybe. That's actually kind of where project outcome comes in, because you can look at those questions and it asks how greatly did your participants benefit from this resource? And it's one of those Likert scales from 0 to 5, from not at all to super great or neutral. I have no opinion about this, but this is that's part of how you'll measure success. And then finally, project partners. Partners are not required, but they are welcome and encouraged. Partners can help you reach new people, and they can actually contribute some cash to the game. So if you're having problems needing match, find a partner and you can use them as your match and in kind. I was talking to somebody who has this little co-op makerspace, and I asked, you know, how are you incorporating libraries? How are you working with the libraries in your community? And he's like, oh, the libraries are kind of not open to partnering with us, which kind of surprised me and broke my heart a little bit, because libraries are traditionally, you know, community resources, and we want to be resources for everybody, and we hope that it's not so siloed and us versus them all the time. You know, maybe these people really can't bring anything in terms of cash, but they can bring publicity and like a new target audience into your world. So partners are great, but they're not required. Okay, here's the budget. So the budget might look a little bit different than it has in the past, because IMLS realigned their categories. So now we have salaries, wages, benefits. Those are not meant for your current staff, right? You're not meant to use LSTA money to replace your operating money for salaries, but you can use them for temporary help. yeah, so you're going to put how much LSTA money you want in that. For description, we want number of FTEs, which is full-time equivalents, which is 40 hours per week. So if you have someone who's working 20 hours, that's 0.5 FTE. And we don't want names, we just want job titles or descriptions. So, library tech is a description, and you describe what the tech will do, and you put how many FTE hours. Consultant fee, that's when you have someone come in and do something for you, right? Consultant fee. Travel, that's travel. That includes any travel that's related to making your program go and work. Supplies and materials, those are now all combined. That's supplies, those are pens and pencils and construction paper, and those are also books. Supplies and materials are now one thing. Equipment over 5,000. So equipment is real property that has a shelf life of over a year, right? So a laptop is not considered equipment unless it's a super fancy, more than $5,000 laptop. Laptop is considered a supply. What's over $5,000? You know, if you have like a major piece of tech equipment, like a plasma cutter, that's over $5,000. And the thing with that is that needs to be approved by IMLS before you're allowed to buy it. So keep that in mind. And we have services. That's someone providing a service. They've come and painted your house. And indirect costs, those are now allowed. You can request LSTA funds to cover your indirect costs. You have to supply supporting documentation. So you probably have a negotiated rate. Here's a question from WNC. Would supplies and materials cover furniture? Yes, they would cover furniture. Would structural changes for Wi-Fi be included in supplies or equipment? Goodness, with structural changes for Wi-Fi, that I would have to investigate, because Wi-Fi is a whole different thing. Wi-Fi, if you use LSTA money to do anything that's connected to the internet, whether that's supplying internet or supplying devices that connect to the internet, you have to be SIPA compliant. You have to comply with the Children's Internet Protection Act. So that's one thing. And then what about building sign? Oh my God, what about building signage? Building signage. So, you know, there are a lot of things that are best if I look them up or consult with my program manager, my federal program manager. So if you have very specific questions about your budget, just shoot me an email and I will get them all signed off on. SIPA, again, is the Children's Internet Protection Act. It's filters to protect children from unwanted and harmful images. And that's just a very brief description of it. SIPA is also something that we can talk about. Colleges, I don't think, need to be SIPA compliant, but if you're going to buy equipment that connects to the internet, then that's a different category. So we can also talk about that in an email. Okay. So I think that's it. Also on the budget is your cash in kind. So as I said, we require 10%. If you have more, by all means report it. It actually demonstrates a lot of community buy-in. It's great if you have more than your basic 10% match. We don't award bonus points if you have 50% match, but when we do our report, like that LSTA map, and we show LSTA funds and local funds, it looks beautiful and brilliant that you have so much community support. So report all the match that you have. Okay. Here we have the proposal certification. Project title, this is your name and your library, and you're signing that just because I submit this proposal doesn't mean I'm obligated to apply for a grant, nor does it mean the state is obligated to award you funding. it's just, this is a proposal and we're just putting it out there and we'll go from there. You can submit as many proposals as you'd like. If you do, please rank them. So, you know, if you have 5 proposals and you want to see which we think is the most viable, you can just send them all in, or if you have one that you think you'd prefer to do, you can put a little, you know, number 1 by it. Okay, here's the final page, eligibility. I think we discussed eligibility a little bit, but here it is again. You are just signing that you are eligible to apply and participate. If there's some aspect of this that your library is still aiming to come into compliance with, and you will be in compliance with by the time the program starts, please tell us. Please document the steps you're taking to become eligible. Okay. Can we submit supplemental materials with proposal? So the proposal, we would prefer that you save all that for the application. The proposal is just, it's the very first step. It is highly unlikely we'll tell you, no, that is just not going to work with LSTA. In fact, let me go back to the PowerPoint and we'll, we've got 13 minutes left. Let me wind this up. Let's go back to the PowerPoint. Okay, here we are at the PowerPoint. Here's eligibility. We haven't covered that. I apologize. I thought we had. So here's what you must do to be eligible to apply. For everybody, if you are a public library, school library, academic library, consortium, or nonprofit, there are some additional qualifications, additional requirements. Oops. Where's the chat? I lost the chat box. Who may submit a proposal? Oh no, why submit a proposal? Well, as I said, it's just putting an idea out there and seeing if we think it's going to be a viable project. You can change it. There's no commitment. No commitment at all. When you submit the proposal, you know, there are options. We can tell you it's fantastic, please move forward. We can tell you it's a great idea, but we recommend that you do this. We can say, you know, why don't you give us a call, or why don't we give you a call and we can discuss this in more detail. Or, you know, as I said, we can also say, nah, that's probably not the best idea. Maybe you can find other funding because that really doesn't align with federal LSTA priorities. But that's the whole point of the proposal, to see what really will work and what's viable for your community. Okay. So we evaluate these internally. These are the things that we look at. We went over this kind of already: need, planning, clarity, realistic budgets. One thing I did not mention, this is federal money. There's the OMB office. I'm not sure what OMB stands for, quite honestly, but there are federal guidelines as to how you can spend federal money. And it's 2 CFR 200 subpart E. There's a whole list of things that tell you what you can do and you cannot do. But here are some of the more common things that people would like to do that they cannot do. And here's a link to an allowable cost tip sheet. And it's also in the LibGuide. It's under general information. There's all sorts of IMLS tips for what you can and can't do with your grant money. Match, we talked about match, 10%. Here's a brief overview of the timeline. I think we also maybe spoke about that. Proposal, feedback, application, first draft feedback, application final, evaluation and ranking. Then at the spring council meeting, if you have a competitive grant, you will be invited to attend a Q&A session, or council will just ask you some questions, go into a little more detail. And then if you're funded, it will be, your project will go from July of 2018 to June of 2019. Okay. And there's chat. Sorry about that. Okay, that's it. Okay, that's it, guys. That's LSTA proposal in a nutshell. Here's us. Tammy Westergaard is the assistant administrator. She knows all sorts of things about everything. So if you have any questions, you can ask her. Norma Fowler also knows all sorts of things about everything. And there's her email. There's me. I know little bits about lots of everything, and I have resources to get your answers, though, even if I don't know them. Here's our website. Oh, and I spelled LibGuide wrong, but that is our LibGuide for the LSTA program. And that is it. Any questions? If you have very, very specific questions, shoot me an email, and we'll get all of those answered. Nope. Okay, I guess we're done. We're done 9 minutes early. I'm going to stop the recording and shut everything down.